Hello again. It is Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to recap two SEC basketball games from Wednesday night, Valentine's Day. Boy, two teams had a happy Valentine's Day, and two teams got a lump of coal in the chocolate box, I think. We'll get into that momentarily. A reminder, this is brought to you by BetOnline, which continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year with up-to-the-minute odds, stats, trends. You can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting contests and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today. Become part of the team. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we thought that South Carolina and Auburn, Blake, had a chance to be interesting because South Carolina has just been able to make teams do things they don't want to do and slow down what they do. But then we have Auburn, which when it is in Neville Arena, puts on its Superman cape and is just invincible. And Auburn was able to speed it up, get things going. It hit 12 of 20 from three. It was running, dunking, throwing shots into the stands, all the things that Auburn does when Auburn is at its best. Johni Broome, 21 points. Williams gives them 23. Auburn turns it over how many times? 7 times and hits 12 of 20 from three-point range. Blake, when Auburn does that, I don't know that anybody's beating Auburn anywhere, anytime, anyplace.
You guys picked South Carolina, right? I was the only one that picked Auburn. Is that correct?
That might loosely be the truth, and emphasis on loosely and not much emphasis on truth, but go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't know via my Twitter responses over the past 12 hours, but
I don't think people know how it works around here.
Yeah, I don't think they know how it works around here. But it turns out, so I just realized what happened. Okay, I told you I signed the Paris Pact to 2024. Well, it turns out I signed the wrong treaty because actually, the one I meant to sign was the Williams-Broome Act of 2024, and that one says no one shall enter the territory of Neville Arena and emerge with victory, basically, something along those lines. That's the one I meant to sign. So it's like it just happens sometimes, right? You sign the wrong contract, you sign the wrong thing.
It happens to the best of us.
You know, Jefferson was meaning to sign something else, actually, I think, when he signed the Declaration of Independence. That's what I hear. But, yeah, look, I mean, we have our fun with our picks and all of that stuff. But, I mean, this was one, as we said. I mean, if you were picking Auburn, there was a clear reason to pick Auburn because they had beaten everybody by double digits. It's just a different game. And we said this could be the Alabama game for South Carolina, where you just go on the road, you run into a team that, especially if you don't shoot it well, which South Carolina did not. They go 3 of 15 in this game. And so, yeah, I mean, this was just Auburn mad, coming off a loss, not just a loss, like and somewhat embarrassing loss at Florida after all the talk of the big win over Alabama. You go play at Florida, you're down 29 at one point, just awful. I mean, just an awful game. Your worst game of the season. And then you bounce back with one of your maybe best game of the season, beating, a top 15 team by 40 at home. And so it just shows you the power of this Auburn team at home and the confidence that if they get rolling and this team is confident, they're going to beat anybody because they're not easy to slow down. And especially, you mentioned a second ago, if they're going 12 of 20 from three, they're going to win the national championship. Because that's what we said. If you're looking for an area to pick on Auburn about, it's that. That's really the only one you can pick on them and say, well, they don't shoot the three that well. But if they're shooting it like they did last night, and remember too, we've said about South Carolina, it's not just that teams don't make threes against them; it's teams aren't getting threes against them. Period. They're not able to put up a lot of shots because of the way they pressure defensively. Auburn gets up 23s, they make 12 of them. But they just, it's even shooting 62% from inside the arc. Of course, they took advantage of. They only missed 2 free throws too. So the perfect night for the Auburn Tigers on Valentine's Day, and for South Carolina, Sure. Are there going to be people come out of this saying South Carolina's a fraud at 21-4, 9-3? They just get beat by 40 on the road. Of course, it's going to happen. But I mean, this was just the ultimate bad setup. My fun pick aside, it just was. We said it like it's the spot, right? Like it's all about Auburn was in a bounce back spot after the game against Florida. South Carolina running into a team that's just pissed off, and yeah, that's what can happen in the SEC when that happens. So yeah,
they ought to just take this box score and frame it and put it in a trophy case, because you hit on some of the stats, but just let me read you the whole thing. Auburn field goal percentage 61%, 3-point percentage 60%, free throw percentage 89.5. I mean, if you want to pick flaws, the rebound battle was tied at 29. Of course, there were no offensive rebounds to be had for Auburn, which grabbed 5 of them. Turnovers 7, assists 23. And it wasn't even a game where like the fouls were lopsided. Auburn was charged with 18 and South Carolina 19 in the game that by the way, got a little chippy as it went on. I mean, you just can't play better than that.
No.
I mean, that would be good against, I don't know, Morehead State.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing too we said on the flip side for South Carolina is, if there is something that's going to worry you a little bit about them, is that it really all is the defense. Like the defense is what has to carry it. They have to play the type of style that they want to play. And if you get a game like this that just all of a sudden gets out in a hurry, you don't know if you have, the offensive punch sometimes to be able to get back into it. Not to say South Carolina's a bad offensive team. It's just, when you're playing one of the best defensive teams out there, which, I've repeated for weeks now, it's fun to watch Auburn play offense, and we can see all the points they're scoring, all this, but it's their defense that is why Auburn is as good as they are and why they're able to win games by double digits. It's the combination of being a great offensive team and being just a dominant defensive team. That's what gets the score from a 5-point game to a 15-point game and so forth. And so it's the combination of the two. And I think just with South Carolina, sometimes, as we said, I mean, if you go back to the Alabama game, right, it's eerily similar. Even the Georgia game, what did they not do well in those 3 games? 5 of 25 from 3 against Alabama, 6 of 26 against Georgia, 3 of 15 against Auburn. And so it's just they need a little extra something, because they're just not. They have guys who can score. We've talked about all the guys. I mean, they've expanded beyond the Big Four now, but it's just still. I think you need your defense and style of play to carry you more so than winning a 95-93 type game. Like, that's not the games that South Carolina wants to play. They want to do where they held what was it, 6 or 7 straight opponents to 65 or fewer points. That's how they win. They're not winning games like this where all of a sudden Auburn just gets out and Auburn had 50 at halftime, right? So it's like, you've been giving up 65 or fewer, and Auburn's got 50 at the half. It's just, you're not come back from that kind of game and that kind of style is just not something that South Carolina needs to be in, like, to win games. It's just not going to happen consistently if they're in that position. And this was just the perfect storm against an Auburn team that is just dominant at home. And yeah, this was no contest after the first however many minutes there. You just felt like Auburn was going to do exactly what they did. So,
well, it's also not going to happen when they get 1 point from their bench.
Well, sometimes you gotta have a little more scoring than that. I mean, and even right, it's not even that. I mean, they the other 2 starters only got 5 points combined, right? Cooper only had 4, Davis had 1. You get 1 from Clark, and then you're just expecting 3 other guys to carry you, which Meechie Johnson had 22. Colin Murray-Boyles had 19, BJ Mack had 14, and it's just, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? You think about it, South Carolina fans probably a little scary. It's like, what happens if they don't get to the free throw line 28 times? It's like, then what's the score? So that was, at least they did get the opportunity to get the free throw line. That was, again, the aggressive physical style, but I just think that's the thing, man. It's, some of this was about South Carolina, but I think a lot of this was about Auburn. I mean, it's just, this was the spot that I always say Bruce Pearl is very good at kind of this particular situation where his team comes off a huge loss. They come back, motivation, he's got them motivated. We knew they'd be motivated to play. We knew the Florida loss would be flushed, and here's an opportunity, right, against this red-hot South Carolina team, and Auburn came out and showed you exactly what they can be when they're playing their best. So,
speaking of non-competitive, boy, Tennessee had not won in Fayetteville since 2009, but we did not let that deter us from picking the Vols. Tennessee went to Fayetteville. They took the women, they took the children, they took the corn nuts, the zero bars, they slashed the tire of the Must Bus. My goodness. Vols looked pretty good last night, Blake.
They did. Just so you guys know, we're having all kinds of technical issues today, so you're going to see probably my screen freeze here at some point. But you can listen if you would like. And, yeah, Tennessee just completely took it to them. That's what you want to see if you're a Tennessee fan. Especially, again, it's the spot. Like, it's the bounce back. Although for Tennessee, the problem was they had to go back on the road again after the A&M game. They weren't like Auburn and got a chance to, come back to the friendly confines. But, yeah, but they went and beat an Arkansas team that has not been very good, and they beat them the way they should have beat them. And I think that was the thing. Like, it wasn't Tennessee just got trounced by Texas A&M, and they come back 4 or 5 days later, and they pull out a, 65-60 win over Arkansas. They went out and just took it to them. And I think that's where we've seen the separation from the teams at the top. This is why. Because Auburn can do what it did to South Carolina last night, because Tennessee can do what it did to Arkansas last night. That's how you separate yourself. And, it's very clear at this point. And so, Aidoo, 23 points, 12 rebounds. He was fantastic. Knecht, his usual 22-point game. Gainey with 17, James with 12, Zeigler with 9. It's the same story for Tennessee. It's the same thing.
Maybe not.
Well, but here's
I got a counterpoint, but go ahead.
But my point is more so, why did Tennessee struggle at A&M?
Well, yes, okay. We're going the same place. We're just getting at it from different angles.
Yeah, Tennessee struggled at A&M because they had Dalton Knecht score 22, Zeigler had 15. No one else really did a whole lot. And of course A&M shot the three well in that game, but that's the conversation that has been brought up over the past 2 weeks is if everybody's predicting Tennessee's downfall, it's that they're not going to have anybody step up around Dalton Knecht. Well, they had that last night. And so that continues to be, to me, easily one of the biggest themes with this team. It's just that, they need other guys to step up, and if they don't have that, then they're always going to find themselves in some of these, unpredictable game scenarios. And so last night, that wasn't a problem. And so, yeah, I just think that, it's not the only thing, but that's one of the biggest things with this team. If they can just find ways to get other people scoring and give them good shots, and they can make those shots, then they're going to be fine.
What I was getting at, I'm looking at offensive ratings on KenPom from last night. And they only give you an offensive rating if you played 10 or more minutes. Tennessee had 7 guys play 10 or 4 more minutes. All of them had an offensive rating of 101 or over. I think 100 is average. And that included, I guess the low man was Meshack at 101. And then next to that was Santiago Vescovi, who had 4 points. But he didn't turn it over but once. Had a couple of assists, did some other things, hit all 4 of his free throws, didn't really attempt a lot of shots. I think one thing that did bother me is he was 0 of 3 from 3, didn't attempt a 2, and at one point Arkansas just said, we're going to leave you uncovered and dare you to shoot, which is, boy, that's a little bit of an indictment. But point is, it didn't really matter because they had 6 other guys that played pretty well offensively. I think one of the biggest things that caught my eye was Jordan Gainey, who's played really well for them at times, gave him 17 last night. Very efficient. What was he? 6 of 8 from the floor and 3 of 3 from the line. They did get their usual, well, not their usual Dalton Knecht game. I guess a usual Dalton Knecht game is closer to 30 points. But point is, He had 22, but they had other guys who stepped up and gave them points. And I think when Tennessee gets offensive balance like that, going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of teams that are going to beat them when they're doing that, because we know the defense is going to be there. You're not, like I said the other night, you're just not going to have many nights where a team like Texas A&M, one of the worst shooting teams out there, makes that many shots against you. Just ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. But yeah, I think that even you go back to South Carolina loss, it's like Tennessee was in the game because of their defense. Like, they're still right there, and it's just they just were terrible offensively. But I think that and I said this to someone earlier, the luxury Tennessee has now. You think about it, after the Texas A&M loss, a bit of a grind over the past couple of weeks. They had to go play that game at Lexington, had the just grind of a game against South Carolina. Now they have the luxury of playing at Arkansas, dominant win there. Now they get Vanderbilt, then they get Missouri. So they get the three worst teams in the league all in a row on their schedule. And it's kind of a chance to sort of reset a little bit. I know Vanderbilt's coming off the win over A&M, but they're going to be a double-digit, 15-plus point underdog in Knoxville. And I know the last game there at times was a little bit close, but that's just the way it works. Tennessee will be a huge favorite at Missouri. So it's kind of a chance to reset here, regain that confidence going into the stretch run, because the stretch run is one of the toughest for anybody in the SEC. And they're, of course, in the SEC title race. Home against A&M, the rematch. Home against Auburn, at Alabama, at South Carolina, home against Kentucky. Like, that's a brutal 5-game finish for Tennessee that will decide whether they can win the SEC title or not, because all those games are going to have impact on everybody. Well, minus the A&M game. All those games are going to have impact on other teams that are trying to be in the same conversation. So, yeah, I look at it from that standpoint. I think Tennessee has a chance now. These 3 games here, they've already had one against Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Missouri, kind of reset a little bit. Build up that confidence with other guys, keep the scoring consistent with everyone else other than just Dalton Knecht, and then I think that'll serve them really well going into that final run of the season. And for Arkansas, just quickly, I mean, these are the kind of games where if you don't have a Brazil in the lineup, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I know, Arkansas fans will say, well, we won against Georgia, we won against Missouri without him. Yeah, well, this is a different beast here, and I think this is where you need, even if just for depth purposes, you need a guy like that out there to be able to combat what a Tennessee team can do. And so obviously that's not the only reason they got beat by 29, but it's just the same story. I mean, they played everybody.
Devontae Davis played all 40 minutes, and that was the thing that I thought, like, if you're pinning your hopes to something, Blake, okay, he was the engine that made them go late last year. He's gotten back, played well the other night. And you're like, okay, that seems to be your best shot to win. They gave it a shot, and it just never got going.
Yeah, I don't, we don't have the answers for Arkansas. I mean, I don't think anybody has the answers. Mustn't have the answers, or they wouldn't be in this position. And now it's just like, what's next? You go to A&M or just go to Mississippi State on Saturday, go to A&M after that. 2 brutal games. Then luckily you do get the Vanderbilt Missouri combo the following week. But yeah, I mean, probably right now you're looking at Arkansas at best being a probably 6-win team in the SEC. That's at best. We just would not have expected that going into the season. So,
you know how when you watch election night, you watch and it's like, all right, we're going to call, 3% of the votes are in, but we're going to call California for Gavin Newsom or whatever. Like the vote total of what they've got in is overwhelming. The makeup of the rest of the state. I feel like it's about time to make a call that we're going to see Vanderbilt and Arkansas in the 12-13 SEC tournament opener here in our hometown.
Maybe.
Well, look, Missouri, I don't think is getting out of 14 now that Vanderbilt's won 2 games.
That's not what I was. I'm
okay.
insinuating somebody else dropping. Like, I am not sold on Georgia getting out of that spot. Like, I'm sorry, Georgia's lost
got
5
a 1-game lead though.
Well, they do, but here's the problem.
Well, they also lose the tiebreaker.
Well, but here's Georgia's remaining schedule. I think Arkansas is going to win a couple games. because they got Vanderbilt and Missouri left, right? So I think Arkansas wins both of those. And, well, hold on a second. Let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, they're both at home. I think Arkansas is going to win both of those. Even if they lose all the other games, that gives Arkansas 5 wins in the standings, right? I mean, if you look at Georgia's schedule, I'm not guaranteeing they're going to win at Vanderbilt. They got Florida at home. That's tough. Auburn at home, tough. At LSU, tough. Home against A&M, tough. Home against Ole Miss, tough. At Auburn. I'm not saying Georgia's going to lose out, but boy, they're in a tough spot here. If you look at that remaining schedule, if they lose that Vanderbilt game, that's where things get tricky. Ultimately, I think you're going to be right, but I'm just saying, I never thought I would say it, but I think it's going to be closer than we think about Georgia dropping, perhaps. But then they come out and beat Florida here, and it won't matter. So
Ken Pomeroy's got it from the bottom up. Missouri 1-17, projected at 1-17. Missouri, of course, doesn't have a win yet in the league. Vanderbilt 3-15, Arkansas 5-13, Georgia 7-11.
Georgia gets to 7. We'll see. Like I said, I mean, it can happen. I'm curious right now. I mean, I think it's kind of set in right now. I mean, right where it's, man, they're finding ways to lose games.
Yeah.
And they did just lose at Arkansas. But luckily for Georgia, here's what they have in their favor. They had the midweek off, and I pulled up the stat. Midweek off, you are sitting pretty, unless you're Vanderbilt against Tennessee. Everybody else has won in the midweek off. So there were 4 teams off in the midweek this week. So those all 4 could be setting up for victories. We'll see. But
yeah, Ken Palm's got it. Georgia favored to win 2 outright, but winning 3. The only 2 games in which Georgia's favored are at Vanderbilt and at home against Ole Miss. It is favored to lose the other 5, but Texas A&M 46% chance to win that one. So that's almost a toss-up. That one's in Athens.
Well, I just think, as long as they stay 1 game ahead, because I just think Arkansas, and I know it just got blown out by 29, but look, we're also predicting Arkansas, where it's like, why even try? But if you look at their last 3 home games, Arkansas is going to be potentially favored in all 3 of them: Missouri, Vanderbilt, LSU. So, so that gets them to 6 if they win all 3 of those. So, Georgia's got a tougher road, I think, even with the home games. I just think they're playing teams that are fighting for their NCAA tournament lives. That's one of the problems for Georgia. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Florida's in. Well, I mean, they should be, but yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I also think Georgia's going to have more to play for.
Maybe. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It's like you lose 5 in a row in the SEC. Sometimes that can just completely, but that's where I think having a midweek off can help you. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they come home and play well against Florida on Saturday and maybe win the game. Because remember, they took it to overtime last time. So after a furious comeback. So the Mike White Bowl, that could be what determines keeping Georgia out of that 12-13 game.
Yeah, I mean, I think this could go both ways. You raise a good point. I just think that Arkansas, you look back, I mean, I still look at the lineup. I'm going, how is this team a 3-win SEC team? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, chemistry is everything.
Yeah. Parting thoughts?
Nope. Hit the subscribe button. We'll have our previews and predictions coming up for all the big games this weekend. We only got 2, I think, we're going to do in separate videos: Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama, A&M. Then we'll have all the others in one video. And, so hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you guys. And, as always, remember, we like to have fun with our picks. So
we do.
Don't take them too seriously all the time. The Paris Pact has been thrown in the
Paris
trash.
Pact.
What was the other one I created earlier? I don't even remember
the Broome-Williams Act.
The Broome-Williams Act of 2024, which says you may not step into Neville Arena without taking a big L. That's what it says, I think. So
you shall be swept out of.
You shall be broomed.
You shall be broomed. Man, we got a lot going on here. I'm doing baseball stuff later today. We've got our SEC preview. I'm working on power. I'm still doing the research right up to the last minute. So if those of you wondering where's our baseball content, I don't want to do this halfway. We're doing 3 things here at once, and so it takes some time to arrive at your conclusions. I'm getting that together. We've got some Ole Miss football stuff coming today. I think we've got Trey Wallace joining us tonight to talk about this Tennessee court case. He's been in the building for that one. I can't even keep up with it all. That's why I've got a schedule in front of me to tell me what to do next. But anyway, whatever your flavor when all that, we're going to have you covered. Thank you for watching. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline.